Chapter 51, That Bastard is Older Than Me. After lending the car to Sun Sunny, she was seen with at least 2 different men in the car on multiple occasions, not to mention an incident at the airport. Fang Hao could tell that Sun Sunny was quite promiscuous, but he didn't expect it to be to this extent. During this time, Fang Hao's wife had gone to the countryside. When she returned, on a morning of a business trip, she called from the car, saying, "I'll accompany Sister Yun to West City. I have 3 days of normal vacation, and I've also applied for an extra 3 days off. Will you come with me, or should I come to you?" Upon hearing this, Fang Hao's heart suddenly ached because this call wasn't meant for him. Although his wife said she was on a week-long business trip, in reality, it was only for 3 days. The remaining time was a deception. Saying a few more days was just an excuse to spend time with her lover during this extended holiday. Just imagine, they were deeply in love in the countryside, but as soon as they returned to the city, she immediately contacted her lover to meet up. What kind of mentality was that? Fang Hao clenched his fists so hard that his fingernails almost dug into his palm. He gritted his teeth but didn't miss a single word. Unfortunately, the phone call with his wife wasn't on speaker, so he couldn't record the conversation. However, he heard his wife saying, "Okay, I'll come to you. I received the clothes you bought for me last time. I hate them so much, making me wear those clothes, I feel so embarrassed." Alright, I'll wear them for you, you old pervert." "Oh, yes." Fang Hao felt like his heart was breaking. His wife was wearing clothes sent by her lover, and they were undoubtedly related to intimacy, just like those seen in adult films. His wife went to great lengths to please her lover, willingly submitting to his desires. Such a rotten woman. "You think you're so slick, but I will expose you. Rotten woman." During the pause in the recording, Fang Hao took a moment to calm down. The parcels sent to his wife wouldn't arrive at their home, which meant it was likely sent to her workplace. However, he had checked his wife's phone and found no relevant information. Damn it, another SIM card. His wife must be using another card. As for the true name on the parcel, with his wife's shrewdness, she wouldn't make such a basic mistake. Old pervert. Indeed, that bastard is older than me. Shameless woman, you're playing quite the game. I will find you and return this humiliation to you tenfold. In the subsequent recording, his wife's voice returned to normal, discussing business matters with her director Cloud, who she called Sister Yun. 3 days later, the car returned to Sun Sunny's possession, and the woman began her promiscuous activities again, bringing different men into the car and even parking in front of her own building to engage in intimate acts while her husband watched. There was no valuable conversation between his wife and her lover in the car. It seemed very cautious, just that one time. Fang Hao was overwhelmed. His wife was so clever that she left almost no traces of her affair, and he wasn't a professional investigator, he couldn't track her down. A guest house? Fang Hao's eyes lit up. According to Sun Sunny, his wife and her lover had once stayed at a guest house. This should provide some clues. Guest house. Fang Hao immediately started searching on the computer and found that there were 3 places in Jiangdong City offering guesthouse services. All 3 were in the outskirts, undeveloped areas with excellent environments. There were about 135 guesthouses in total, and it would be challenging to search through them one by one. These guesthouses charged a night's stay equivalent to Fang Hao's monthly salary, and he couldn't afford to experience and investigate each one. He could only hope that his wife and her lover had left their names, phone numbers, or identification when registering at the guest house. Although his wife was very clever and might have used fake IDs or aliases, Fang Hao clung to this slim hope. His wife often went on business trips and claimed to travel with her best friend, making it impossible to determine her whereabouts. At that time, Fang Hao had wholeheartedly believed in his wife and never expected such a turn of events. With no leads, he had no choice but to seek out Sun Sunny. He had already lost interest in work, informed Lu Jing of half a day off, and decided not to come for the night shift. Fang Hao informed Su Ro in advance that he would be late and asked her to pick up the child. In the evening, Fang Hao went directly to Sun Sunny's home. He bought a fruit basket at the fruit shop in the community and went straight to visit Sun Sunny's house. The door was answered by a middle-aged man, thin and wearing glasses, with an intellectual and slightly arrogant air. This was Sun Sunny's husband, Li Ping, a junior high school math teacher. According to Sun Sunny and her lover's evaluation, Li Ping was a useless man, short, not energetic, and could only last 3 minutes in bed. Fang Hao made up a reason, claiming to be involved in a construction project. He thanked Sun Sini for helping him with some accounts last time and brought a fruit basket along with 1,000 yuan as a gesture of gratitude. Fang Hao used the bonus from his thesis, unwilling to let the wolf get the better of the sheep. Li Ping didn't dare to make a decision and asked Fang Hao to sit down and have some water while he secretly called Sun Sini in the room. Sun Sini was almost home and said she would handle it when she arrived. Li Ping had classes in the evening, so he left first, leaving Fang Hao alone in the house. Ah, such an honest man, Fang Hao sighed. Not long after, Sun Sini returned. When she saw Fang Hao, she was momentarily stunned, but a flash of cunning appeared in her eyes. Oh, what did you lie to my husband for? Just say you're the husband of my leader, there's no problem, she said as she came over, sat next to Fang Hao, and casually placed her hand on his thigh, then directly put it into his crotch. Fang Hao grabbed her hand and said, Miss Sun, please behave yourself. Oh, you lied to my husband just to get close to me? I can fulfill your desires. My husband has classes at night, he won't come back so early. You? Sun Sini teased, but her interest waned when she saw a photo in front of her. It was taken at the airport, showing her with a middle-aged man. She said coldly, were you there at the time? Yes. I happened to be sending someone to the airport, and I noticed my wife's car, so I naturally paid more attention. Miss Sun, I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Fang Hao didn't hide anything and told her that he witnessed the affair. Sun Sini, however, showed no urgency. Instead, she took out a cigarette and lit it. She said, you're in need of my help, regarding your wife. Fang Hao also lit a cigarette and said, let's be frank. Who is the person you saw with my wife? How much do you know? Coincidentally, when you borrowed my wife's car, I happened to have a recording pen in it, and I overheard you discussing my wife's affairs. Which guest house was it? Fang Hao took out a recording pen with a segment of Sun Sini and the man's conversation. It was something Fang Hao had prepared in advance. Sun Sini was shocked and reached over to grab the recording pen. Fang Hao said, rest assured, you tell me which guest house it was, and I'll give you this recording pen. I use this pen to record expert meetings. I still have 2 at home. Fine, you're ruthless. Now take me there. Chapter 52, Approaching the Truth Infinitely. The car drove towards the outskirts. Sun Sini turned to look at Fang Hao, a slight smirk on her lips. Fang Hao, even if you find out who that person is, does it matter? Your wife is so beautiful, can you bear to leave her? Fang Hao, now extremely calm, casually replied, what about your perspective? Let each play their own game. Fang Hao, you're so handsome, women like you. Su-ro plays her game, and you play yours. In life, aren't we all just seeking happiness? Sun Sini tried to manipulate Fang Hao's thoughts, hoping that both he and Su-ro would fall into a downward spiral. Then she might have a chance with Fang Hao. She had many men, but someone as handsome as Fang Hao, especially being a leader's husband, excited her. What you're saying is indeed a way of life. But I want to know who Su-ro's lover is. And what if you know? If I know, I'll seek revenge. If I don't kill him, I'll play with his woman. Fang Hao almost blurted out, but he restrained himself, saying, perhaps I'll wear this unwarranted green hat. To live decently, sometimes you need a bit of green on your head. But I also want to know who's putting that green on my head. And what will you do if you know? Do you want to put green back? Sister Sun, if your husband betrayed you, would you want to put green back? Hee, my husband doesn't have that ability. But what you said is right. I would indeed put green back. Half an hour later, the car entered the rural guesthouse area. Sun Sini pointed to a place and said, it was here. I sat in the car and saw Su-ro and that man entering that guest house. When was it? Several months ago. Think about it carefully. Can you be more specific? Fang Hao, I'm not afraid that you'll tell my husband about my situation. He has nothing now. Even if I do something in front of him, he wouldn't dare to say a word. I'm here with you not because I'm afraid you'll tell my husband, I'm giving you a chance. Stay with me for a night. I'll give you an opportunity to retaliate against your wife. Sun Sini directly laid her cards on the table. She said, you must be very eager to know what your wife did after entering. So, let's go in and do it ourselves. If you don't make me happy, I won't say a word. Fang Hao frowned. Sun Sini was truly despicable. He changed the topic and said, Sister Sun, there's no need for this. I found out who that scumbag is. I'll talk to Su-ro, and we'll each go our own way. We still have a chance to be together. Sun Sini said, your delaying tactics won't work on me. I'm not seeking a long-lasting relationship, I'm seizing the moment. If you want to know which day, then book a room. I don't have an ID. Ido. You can use mine. Besides, in a place like this, mostly private, you might not even need an ID. Alright, you go down first. I'll go park the car. Fang Hao's lips curled, and he actually agreed. Sun Sini was pleased, got out of the car, but she didn't expect that as soon as she got out, Fang Hao accelerated and drove away. You bastard. You come back to me. Sun Sini cursed Fang Hao loudly but realized he had left quickly. She immediately called him. After 3 attempts, the call connected. She sternly said, you surnamed Fang, dare to play with me. Believe it or not, I'll kill you. I have a recording. I can report it to the police. Your every word and action will be presented as evidence. If I die, you won't get away with it. Fang Hao, you're formidable. Fine, come back quickly. I beg you, drive back. Take a taxi back. I won't find a taxi here in the wilderness. There's not even a shadow of a ghost. Come back, and I'll tell you the date. You tell me first. May 1st, think about it. What did your wife say to you that day? She must have said she didn't have time to be with you. Fang Hao's heart sank as he realized that during the entire May Day holiday, his wife had concocted excuses to avoid staying at home with their child. His plans for a holiday trip with his wife were shattered, and he never expected that his wife would be with her lover during that time. It was truly heartbreaking. Sun Sini said, Fang Hao, try to be more open-minded. Su Ro is so beautiful, surely other men would be interested. Su Ro is just a tree in the forest of women. You don't need to give up the entire forest for her. Hey, are you listening? Damn it, did you hang up? How dare you hang up on me? I warned you, and you hung up on me. She raged on the roadside but noticed that the car in front of her was turning around. She hurriedly intercepted it, and Fang Hao got out of the car, holding her hand and walking towards the guest house. Fang Hao, that's more like it. Let's get back at your wife. Sun Sini thought Fang Hao was furious and was taking her to a hotel to fulfill her wishes tonight. However, in reality, when Fang Hao reached the registration desk, he treated her like a sister, talking about her scumbag brother-in-law having an affair and pouring out his grievances tearfully. The purpose was to check the housing records. The landlady, a woman in her 30s like Sun Sini, sympathized with her and allowed Fang Hao to check the records. Because this entrance led to 8 independent ghost houses, all owned by the same landlady. So, May 1st wasn't the only day. After checking them all, there was no sign of Su Ro's name. Fang Hao asked, landlady, we couldn't find that scumbag's name. Could he have used a fake name? The landlady said, possibly. These registrations are mostly formalities. When they are strict, they may check an ID, otherwise, guests fill it out themselves. They could write anything, who knows? Sun Sini suggested, can we check the payment records for those days? They probably didn't all pay with cash. Transfers, WeChat, credit cards might reveal information about my scumbag. As long as I have evidence, I can divorce him when I get back. Fang Hao brightened up. Sun Sini was really helping him. But, there's no denying that Sun Sini's plan was also a good idea. They all paid with WeChat. I'll show you, maybe you can recognize your husband's WeChat profile picture. The landlady seemed bored and decided to cooperate with Sun Sini. After a thorough search of the records, Su Ro's name was still not found. Fang Hao knew his wife must have another phone, another WeChat account. Big elephant nose? Fang Hao's pupils suddenly contracted. He found this familiar WeChat name. Wasn't this the person his wife was chatting with? Back in the car, Sun Sini fastened her seatbelt and said, this time, don't think about ditching me here. Judging by your expression, did you find anything, or did you not? Fang Hao remained silent and drove back to the city. Sun Sini lost interest and didn't speak. When they reached the neighborhood, she said, Fang Hao, really, be more open-minded. If you need sister's guidance, call me. Seeing Fang Hao's pitiful appearance and thinking about her own husband, she felt that if her husband were as clever and suspicious as Fang Hao, he would have found out long ago. But her husband only knew about teaching, not caring about her private life. It allowed her to have fun outside. Was this her luck or misfortune? No, I'm not like Su Ro. Su Ro has such a handsome and young husband, and I don't. If I had one, why would I cheat? Wouldn't it be better to spend my days with him? I'm fine, it's Su Ro who has a problem. Chapter 53, Your Utter Depravity. Zhou Jiejie. On the way home, Fang Hao's mind was filled with the name recorded in his notebook, along with the subsequent entries. This was Su Ro's handwriting. Zhou was Su Ro's mother's surname, and Jiejie was her daughter's name. When using a false name, she would often use a familiar person's name, a common habit among people. As for the handwriting, it was a style between regular script and cursive, written quickly. For a doctor, this type of font posed no difficulty in recognition. Additionally, there were some writing habits unique to his wife, such as the rise and fall of certain strokes when writing numbers. Even if she wanted to use an alias, these habits were unlikely to be considered. At that time, she was in a hurry to register and meet her lover, so she naturally wrote quickly. Thinking about her lover only added more flaws. He loved his wife very much, but when he saw those written characters and the payment from the big elephant nose, everything became clear. Even without witnessing the unpleasant scene, he knew what had happened during the 3 days and nights in the rural guest house. Any normal man would do what needed to be done in such a situation. Woman, I never expected you to fall so low. Divorce is a must. Divorce? What would I gain after the divorce? Fang Hao felt an unprecedented impulse, a desire to succeed. He was unwilling to be a failure, he couldn't accept it. His wife's betrayal must be due to his lack of excellence. He was a rural man, she was a city dweller. His family was poor, hers was well off. They were mismatched in both background and status. However, when he reached the neighborhood, he didn't drive into the garage but turned around, leaving the community and returning to the hospital. He had a mentor who had recently been promoted to deputy director, and Fang Hao had access to the new office. Armed with the office keys, he could use the computer and other equipment inside. When his wife called, Fang Hao instinctively thought of ignoring it, but in the end, he answered, I have some extra work at the hospital and won't be able to come back. Go to sleep. He hung up. Soon after, he received a message from his wife, husband, take care and get some rest. In the past, he would have been deeply moved and would have scolded her for working so hard for the family. But now, that home seemed meaningless to him. For a moment, he even felt like abandoning his son and letting that woman take care of him. When the child grew up and learned the truth, whether he acknowledged Fang Hao as his father or not, it wouldn't matter how well he treated him. As for the daughter, she wasn't even his biological child. However, as he looked at the screen in front of him, everything started to blur. Without realizing it, tears streamed down his face. Why am I feeling this pain? She's clearly despicable, so worthless, and undeserving of my love. Fang Hao wanted to cry out loud. Alright, I'll come find you. I received the clothes you bought for me last time. I hate them. Wearing those clothes, I don't even have the face to meet people. Fine, I'll wear them for you to see, you old pervert. Oh, yes. His wife's voice on the recording felt like needles piercing and knives cutting into his heart. This voice caused his mind to buzz, nearly shattering into pieces. Why is she so despicable? What is she after? Why am I feeling this pain? Fang Hao opened his mouth but dared not cry out. There were still nurses and even patients' relatives moving around outside. His mentor's office unexpectedly became his refuge. He didn't know how long it had passed, but his heart had been cut into pieces. His nerves had gone numb. No, I refuse to accept this. I want revenge. After a deep breath, Fang Hao realized that he could still feel his thighs. The physical pain could alleviate the pain in his heart and mind. After a long delay, he started to follow his previous study plan, examining cases and analyzing data. At home, Yu mother, Zhou Fen, glanced at the time on the wall. She looked at her daughter, who was checking her phone on the side, and said, It's so late. Why hasn't Fang Hao come back yet? Without lifting her head, the wife replied, He said there's overtime at the hospital, and he can't come back. Yu mother said, He works the morning shift, and he works the night shift. Is he the owner of that hospital? Why is he so dedicated? Is he short of money? Didn't I give you money? Why are you working so hard? The wife said, Mom, it's not like you think. He likes being a doctor. Yu mother said, You didn't understand what I meant. Liking being a doctor is not a problem. He's already a doctor. But which doctor likes working the night shift, especially when he has a wife and children? The postgraduate students under my command, not to mention colleagues, even those with boyfriends or girlfriends, can't wait to leave work early. So, either Fang Hao is foolish or he doesn't want to come home. If it's the former, I won't say anything. If it's the latter, then it's your problem. Mom, what are you saying? What problem do I have? Fine, then just think Fang Hao is foolish. People have already signed up for a PhD, and you still think he's foolish. Shaking her head, Yue mother returned to her room. The wife was stunned for a moment, and she lost interest in chatting in the WeChat group. She returned to the bedroom, lying on the bed. For the first time, she felt how wide the bed, spanning 2 or 3 meters, was. It made her feel a bit lonely. In the past, she would lie down and fall asleep shortly after. But now, she found herself without the slightest drowsiness, feeling blocked inside, unsure of where the problem lay. Hospital. Knock, knock. A nurse knocked on Fang Hao's door, asking nervously, Dr. Su? Are you Dr. Su? Dr. Su is my mentor. Why are you looking for him? Fang Hao realized that there was a nurse who didn't recognize his mentor. Judging by her unfamiliar face, she might be new or transferred from another department. Patient on bed 20 is having difficulty breathing. Please come and see, Dr. Su. Bed 20, isn't he the one with leg paralysis caused by a stroke? His cardiopulmonary function is fine. Why would he have difficulty breathing? I'll go and take a look. Fang Hao thought that if he called his mentor, the mentor would ask him to go first. He couldn't just remain ignorant and trouble his mentor. That would be too irresponsible. Oh, you know about it? The nurse was a bit surprised. She had just checked the patient's medical records and learned about the situation. However, she didn't expect this young doctor to know off the top of his head. What she didn't know was that Fang Hao could recall the data of all the patients on this floor. Not to mention the patients under his mentor's care, it was one of Su Youqing's strict requirements. Over the years, only Fang Hao had met that standard, and he had been Su Youqing's apprentice all along. Chapter 54, Did you quarrel with your husband? This time, Fang Hao took precautions as he entered the ward. He noticed that there were already nurses and Dr. Chen inside, with Dr. Chen attempting to connect the oxygen machine. What's going on? Fang Hao asked, approaching. He observed the elderly patient struggling to breathe, his face turning red, unable to speak, and his body trembling as if on the verge of suffocation. The accompanying middle-aged woman, likely a family member, appeared flustered, expressing her confusion. The other patients in the ward claimed they hadn't noticed anything unusual. Fang Hao examined the patient, ensuring that the pulse was normal. He then checked the patient's mouth and nose before helping him sit up slightly. After a few pats on the back, the patient eventually spat out a dark object from his mouth, and his breathing eased. To everyone's surprise, the dark object turned out to be a dried longan. It became clear that the elderly man had secretly eaten dried longan, accidentally swallowing the pit, which got lodged in his throat. Dr. Fang, you're amazing. Dr. Chen and the nurses admired Fang Hao. Without him, they might not have identified the cause of the patient's breathing difficulties promptly. Delaying treatment could have led to fatal consequences, and post-mortem findings in such cases often resulted in legal disputes. Thinking about the doctor-patient relationship sent shivers down their spines. Luckily, Fang Hao, modestly dismissing the praise, then headed to his office. The new nurse remarked to her colleagues, Dr. Fang is so capable, but he seems a bit aloof. You don't know what he's been through. When you experience what he has, you'll understand why he appears aloof. What happened to him? You're new here, so you might not know. I'll tell you, but don't spread it around. After a while, the new nurse was left dumbfounded. She hadn't expected Fang Hao to be demoted to the 4 infusion hall. What a miserable situation. The next day, Su Ro was in a good mood as she arrived at the office and began tidying up. Sun Sini entered, looking surprised as she scrutinized Su Ro. Su Ro looked up and asked, Sister Sun, what's wrong? Is there something on my face? Oh, no. Did you have a fight with your husband last night? Oh, a fight? No, we never fight. He's very obedient. It's good if you didn't fight. Huh? Why did you mention us fighting? Is something wrong? Did you meet my husband? No, I haven't. Chairman Dong asked for me, so I'll go over first. Sun Sini quickly left. She pondered, wondering what Fang Hao had done. If he hadn't revealed anything last night, it must be that he didn't find any evidence. What a failure. No, Su Ro must be cheating. Seeing her acting all pure and aloof, it irritated me. You're an adulterous woman just like me, but you managed to deceive Fang Hao, that young husband of yours. I cheated too, but why is my husband short, pathetic, ugly, and old? What's the difference between us? No, I have to let Fang Hao know about your hypocrisy. Sun Sini quickly thought of a plan. Back in her office, she formatted the content of the voice recorder Fang Hao had left for her, ensuring that her recordings couldn't be heard. Then, she went to Su Ro's office. She saw Su Ro looking at her phone, probably sending a WeChat message to Fang Hao. Was she questioning him? Sun Sini placed the voice recorder on the desk and said, Director Su, this happened during the car cleaning last time on your car. I thought your husband couldn't find it, so I assumed you two had a fight. Thank you. I'll give it to him later. Su Ro's pupils constricted slightly, but her expression remained calm and composed. Sun Sini felt a chill in her heart. Su Ro wasn't panicking at all, it indicated that she wasn't afraid of the recording. Moreover, it suggested that Su Ro probably didn't engage in any inappropriate activities in the car. Instead, she must have chosen more sophisticated and discreet places for such indulgence. Meanwhile, Sun Sini, unlucky as she was, borrowed Su Ro's car and fell into Fang Hao's trap with the recording pen. She had brought this misfortune upon herself. Little did she know that the moment the office door closed, Su Ro was trembling with fear. She quickly opened the recording pen, attempting to check its content, desperately hoping that it hadn't captured her actions. Husband? Does he suspect me? The thought sent shivers down Su Ro's spine, and she felt a cold sweat forming on her back. But as she carefully recalled her actions, she couldn't find any flaws. It must be my overthinking. On the other side, Fang Hao had already located the patient related to Dr. Lu Jing's case, a middle-aged man named Zhang Jun, in the advanced stages of liver cancer. In a hospital setting, a simple query could unveil a wealth of information. Fang Hao discovered that Dr. Lu Jing had focused extensively on Zhang Jun's case, evident from multiple records in the database. Zhang Jun had been diagnosed with advanced liver cancer 2 years ago. It seemed that Dr. Lu Jing suddenly shifted her research focus to liver diseases around that time. She even pursued an on-the-job PhD at Peking Union Medical College. Was it because of Zhang Jun? Lu Jing was also closely monitoring Zhang Jun. What was their relationship? Fang Hao recalled the old photo of Lu Jing he had seen at the university. It seemed like there was someone named Zhang Jun in the picture. A classmate fell ill, and then Lu Jing devoted herself to this field. Was it to save her classmate? But why didn't she trust other more specialized colleagues? Starting the research now, would it be in time for the patient? Fang Hao couldn't comprehend fully, especially since Lu Jing and Director Lu were diligently seeking advice from international experts. Zhang Jun, diagnosed with liver cancer, had undergone 10 expert consultations. He seemed to be quite a special patient. After a moment of contemplation, Fang Hao decided to visit the patient himself. At the door of the ward, he saw Lu Jing inside, sitting by the patient's bedside. Even though her back was turned, he could see that she was crying. The patient was also in tears. Their relationship seemed unusually close. Fang Hao was momentarily stunned. Jing, don't cry. The doctor is here. Don't let others see you like this. Zhang Jun consoled Lu Jing when he noticed Fang Hao at the door. Lu Jing wiped away her tears and turned to look at Fang Hao. She seemed surprised but nodded, saying, Come in. Director Lu, I can come back later. Fang Hao felt a bit awkward, witnessing a different side of his superior, which wasn't favorable. It's okay. Come and check on him. All right. Approaching, Fang Hao glanced at the patient. The man's complexion was dismal, a clear sign of liver problems. Additionally, the patient had lost his hair and eyebrows, likely a side effect of chemotherapy. Without much thought, Fang Hao took the patient's pulse, checked both hands, and examined the abdomen. He quickly got a sense of the situation. He then turned to Lu Jing and signaled with his eyes. Some matters were better left unsaid face to face. Chapter 55, Bold Plan. Back in the office, only Fang Hao and Lu Jing remained. Fang Hao inquired, Dr. Lu, what's your relationship with this patient? He's my husband. And my master, he has a good relationship with you, right? My master pursued me first, but we didn't end up together. He married your current stepmother, and I found my current husband later. I'm sorry, I don't mean to pry, but seeing you so upset. Now I understand. Can I speak the truth? Go ahead. In the past 2 years, I've been a doctor, and I know the situation. After a moment of contemplation, Fang Hao said, according to the current treatment plan, there's probably only about half a year left. However, I have a theoretical treatment plan with a 1 in a million chance of success. I can provide it for your reference, but the final decision will be up to you and my master. 1 in a million? Summarize it for me to see. Lu Jing's eyes lit up as she eagerly watched Fang Hao. Without hesitation, Fang Hao quickly wrote down a rough treatment plan and handed it to Lu Jing. After reviewing it, Lu Jing fell into contemplation. She understood the Western medicine part and was aware of the risks involved. However, the traditional Chinese medicine part, especially acupuncture, was challenging for her to comprehend. Fang Hao noticed her concerns and explained, "I'll handle the acupuncture part. As for the Chinese medicine, you can get it from our pharmacy, or you can gather it yourself from outside. It would be best to find authentic medicinal herbs. If you're not familiar with the preparation process, I can help you. Dr. Lu, please consider." Glancing at the time, Fang Hao headed to the infusion hall to continue with his work. The head nurse still kept a close eye on him, feeling increasingly irritated that Fang Hao didn't give her any attention. However, as he entered and began his work without making any mistakes, she couldn't find a reason to confront him. At noon, Fang Hao was having lunch when he received a call from his master, instructing him to come to the office later. After hanging up, he received another call, this time from Sun Sini. Although he frowned, he answered. Sun Sini said, "Have you let your wife off the hook?" "What do you mean? Did you find something?" "There was no evidence last night." "Do you think a woman who's cheating would admit it without evidence?" "Would you?" "What are you doing now? Why aren't you looking for evidence?" "If you have evidence, give it to me. I'll thank you." "How will you thank me?" "I already told you. If you divorce, will you be with me?" "What's the big deal?" "It's just a small matter. I'm eating. Stop talking about these disgusting things. Goodbye." Fang Hao hung up, muttering to himself about Sun Sini being a rotten person, and the fact that she and his wife were colleagues made him nauseous. He lost his appetite and discarded his meal into the nearby trash bin. He went to his master's office and saw that his master had transcribed a copy of his plan. Clearly, Lu Jing had discussed it with him. As expected, his master asked directly, "Are you sure?" "I haven't performed this kind of surgery before, but I'm confident. As for the traditional Chinese medicine part, I don't know how to explain it, but I believe I can handle it. Of course, the final result can only be said to have a 1 in a million chance. And if it fails, how much time can it extend? As long as there's no direct surgical failure, 3 years. Moreover, during these 3 years, we can continually improve our techniques, increasing the chances of a cure day by day. You should discuss this with the hospital director." Fang Hao knew that the main attending physician for Jiangdong was the former hospital director. Only with his leadership could Lu Jing be assured. If the former director personally intervened, pooling various medical resources, and it still wasn't enough, then it truly wouldn't work. The former director is so good to my master, to Lu Jing, to Li Xiaoxi. Why not show me some favor and give me the right to prescribe? Fang Hao grumbled in his heart, feeling a bit resentful. However, his background made him feel inferior, forcing him to bear all of this. After some contemplation, his master didn't immediately respond. In the afternoon, at 2 o'clock, Fang Hao was summoned to the office of the hospital director. Inside, there were his master, Lu Jing, the head of the surgery department, the head of the gynecology department, and several other high-ranking figures in the hospital. Fang Hao felt a bit uneasy and said, "Old director, I haven't done anything in the past 2 days to cause trouble for you." Lu Jing added, "Dr. Fang, we think your proposal is worth considering. Please explain it to us." The old hospital director said, "The plan is bold, but it's a perspective. Since you proposed it, explain it to us. At the same time, answer a few questions." Fang Hao felt relieved. It wasn't a public criticism session. He was well aware of the proposal he had put forward. Approaching his master, Fang Hao didn't dare to sit and could only stand. The head of the surgery department, Director Gong, was the first to speak. "Dr. Fang, you suggested this surgical plan. What are your thoughts?" He turned to Lu Jing and said, "Director Lu, I think you shouldn't be here. After all, we're discussing your husband." Lu Jing responded, "I have the psychological capacity. Everyone, don't treat him as my husband. Just consider him an ordinary liver disease patient. Right now, he's a patient first and my husband second." She looked at Fang Hao and said, "Dr. Fang, you are young, and we are not familiar with you. You don't have to worry about treating your own family. If you have ideas, speak up boldly. This might be our only chance." Fang Hao's mood instantly became heavy. He nodded and said, "Okay." He looked at Director Gong and said, "I know the difficulty of the surgery lies in the typical position being insufficient for incisions. But if we change the patient's position, for example, like this." He directly lay in front of everyone, demonstrating the slightly awkward position for incisions. Director Gong looked at the old hospital director. Although his brow was furrowed, he nodded, indicating that this position and angle should be feasible. His master stretched out, his eyes brightening. He remembered that Fang Hao had written an article before, talking about this kind of strange research. At that time, he thought Fang Hao was wasting time, but now it seemed that the knowledge was being put to use. This kid is really a promising talent. An older doctor from the traditional Chinese medicine department, who was a professor, took out a box of needles and said, "Little Fang, come here. I'll tell you a location, and you needle it on me." Fang Hao was puzzled and said, "Dr. Kai, I can't do this." Dr. Kai replied, "If you're going to perform acupuncture on Jiangdong, and you don't understand how to do it, then how is it possible? If you understand, you won't hurt me, right?" Oh, this is a paradox. Fang Hao realized that he was being cornered. If he didn't reveal his skills, they wouldn't let him proceed with this plan. He felt a bit selfish and wanted to showcase his abilities, hoping the old hospital director and others would notice him and grant him prescription rights. He reluctantly agreed and went over. After disinfecting the area, he followed Dr. Kai's instructions and inserted the needle. It was steady and accurate, the result of 5 or 6 years of experience. Dr. Kai nodded. As an expert, he could sense Fang Hao's proficiency in this area. Through the clothes, he accurately found the acupuncture point, with the right amount of force and a suitable angle and depth. Although there were minor flaws, they weren't significant. He then pointed to another acupuncture point, instructing Fang Hao to perform acupuncture there. Fang Hao hesitated. "Dr. Kai, we can't do this again. Otherwise, half of your body will be numb, and you won't be able to cry or laugh. You'll blame me."